right into it. So starting us off, if we're on the job market, Ben, and we need to figure out how are we going to do this? How do we set up a plan? What's step number one?
Step number one is to start setting with a plan. Now, I think at the end of the day, it's an intentional thing, right? We have to start somewhere. We have to lay a foundation for what we're looking to do, how we're looking to kind of approach whatever lies ahead for us in our career. I mean, keep in mind, people are building out job search plans. You may even be in a situation where you're fairly happy in your current role, but then thinking about where to be a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, so on and so forth. I tried to structure this today, really, as far as like setting a routine around operating across two lanes. One, your active job seeker, the one that doesn't have a job currently, maybe they got let go unexpected last Friday, or they were in a situation where they knew that they were just going to have to be actively looking for work soon. And then you've got the folks that are currently employed looking for, ideas and steps along the way when it comes to searching for work. The first thing that I would tell you is no matter what bucket fits your seat best, it is important that you build out a routine for it. From a standpoint of, I always tell people this, it's a full-time job to get a job. So being able to structure out your schedule, being able to just put yourself out there in the job search process, doing the research in organizations, tapping into LinkedIn to both reach out to your known network and create new ones, new avenues along the way. Those are things that are going to be pretty important to you, regardless of what bucket fits you best. I'll tell a story here real briefly. Some of you know this story. I'm back at SNI. SNI was my first ever employer, but I came back off of my first ever experience with a global reduction in force. So I've been in the shoes of many of you in that regard. I left a company I'd been at for nearly 7 years and built a lot of success with here in the Atlanta area back at the end of 2022. Just wanted to continue to grow in my career. An old boss of mine, still a good friend of mine to this day, reached out to me, and he's a vice president with a global management consulting firm. And short version is he wanted me to come on board and join their talent acquisition team. And within a year, the economy went down, and I was the latest and newest hire in North America and had a very high salary band. It was a very easy decision for them. I didn't begrudge them in the least, but I also knew it was time for me to get to work, right? So the very first Monday after that happened, I gave myself a few days to kind of grieve and grieve and all of that stuff. But short version is I knew that I had to build out a routine, and my routine was treating it like it was a full-time job, and getting into my morning, doing the old walk, shower, eat routine before getting into my desk, and really devoting time aside to be out there actively searching for roles, making sure that I had the right resumes going out to the right places, making sure my resumes were tailored for the right opportunities, et cetera, and just kind of getting into that groove. Obviously, when you've got 40 hours a week to do that versus 8, if you're currently employed, there's a difference there. Obviously, there's different approaches that you should take along those lines when it comes to the goal setting portion. But as you're building in your routine as a short-term person, setting goals for how to contact a number of contacts within LinkedIn, setting goals for the number of applications that you want to send out, setting goals for having different versions of your resume, again, that can go out to different organizations and different roles. Those things are all going to be valuable for you, from that standpoint. Main thing I would just tell people on this end is, from a goal setting perspective, as you're starting your time looking for opportunities, is to just set a routine, set a process, maybe refine it as you go, but kind of stick to what you've done. Ciara, do you have anything that you want to throw on top of that? I realize it's a lot of words, and I don't want to turn this into monologues today.
Yeah, well, I'll kind of go the opposite end. Even if you aren't actively looking, so you're in the other bucket, you have a job, but you're just keeping an eye out. Set up alerts on LinkedIn for companies that you're interested in, roles that you're interested in. Kind of comment about hair, Ben. I'm not sure if it's you or me because I need a haircut too. But oh, there we go. It was Ben. But yeah, set up alerts. You can get emails. I know when I was in college, there were a few companies that I had been prospecting for an internship. So anytime anything that generally fit the bucket, I got an email. I had my resume ready. You can easy apply from your couch, but that is not what we're really focusing on here today. But I wanted to throw that in. So I'm unemployed. I'm setting up my schedule, my goal. So I'm starting on LinkedIn, right, Ben?
Yes, sorry, I had a brief mute moment there, but yes, you would start on LinkedIn.
All right, you want to walk us through like my profile?
Yeah, absolutely. So, main thing I would say on this end is like you always want to make sure that you've got an updated LinkedIn profile first and foremost. And if you're out there looking for opportunities, make sure it's up to date. Make sure it's fully optimized. I know that we've talked about some of that in the past, but making sure that your roles are current and relevant. That you've got your job titles where they need to be, that you've got some good meaty information within the framework of your LinkedIn that speaks to not just the day-to-day duties, but things that you've done and that have created impact for your organization. Certainly have your LinkedIn set up as it's open to work on that side. Now you can do that through two ways. One, you've got the LinkedIn green banner, and then one, you've also got the little toggle switch that you can hit and that marks it discreetly to anyone that doesn't have a LinkedIn recruiter license like myself on the back end of that. But keeping your LinkedIn profile updated and regular is where I would start with this thing. I'm a big believer in strategic networking. We've talked about some of that before, but staying connected to people that have employed you maybe in the past hiring managers and past leaders of yours that can speak to and speak to the value that you bring to an organization. Those are all very important things that can be tapped into hopefully at any time in your career. Right. Also letting folks that you know in your market, in your industry that are out there that have maybe access to opportunities that they know of, letting them know that you're on the market, letting them know that you're available and ready to go is something that I would say as well. At the end of the day, folks that you trust can lead to good job referrals. Most of the work that I've ever found in my life, I haven't had to really be out there actively seeking. I've had folks out there that have been able to talk about the things that I bring to the table. I do believe it's important that you have a good recruiter network around you. My suggestion on that would be I don't necessarily believe it's always wise to throw your resume out to 10 to 15 folks that you don't know. Build a network that you trust in that arena. I've had folks on my side where I've got 3 to 5 probably within my own lane of sight I'm reaching out to. So setting aside time to engage with them and to actively pursue them is a good thing on that side. Make sure they understand what your career goals are, types of roles you'd like to consider, and that sort of thing. Setting aside time to stay on top of industry trends, knowing a little bit about companies that are emerging, companies that are out there looking, what companies are looking for, staying on top of industry trends within the framework of your network and in terms of your skill set, keeping in mind any leadership changes that are going on in organizations that could possibly steer you toward or away from those companies would be helpful as well. So just being very mindful of that. Setting aside time, I think, to prepare for opportunities, to do your research, to really do some long-term planning as well, being clear in your career goals, being mindful of the type of work you want to do. Contract work, are you open to consulting? Are you looking for a direct hire approach? Really kind of structuring your mindset toward those arenas as well would be kind of something that I would speak to also. Ciara, do you have anything that you'd like to add on that front before we move further? Because I realize again I've chatted for a couple of moments there.
Yeah, I have a few things that I will plug. So we just put up a blog, and I actually have a page on Agile's website up now, kind of laying out contract work. So for those of you who aren't familiar, GEE, where Ben and I work, we are a staffing firm. So we do a lot of direct hire roles, but the majority, I would say, is contract work. So I do have a page up on gotoagile.com that explains how that works, what that looks like, salary versus hourly, benefits, that kind of thing. And it's going to be different if you end up going through a different agency, but it'll kind of give you an idea. So I'll put that in the chat after the call as well. But going back to our LinkedIn profile and talking about keeping it updated, not only having a decent profile picture, I would say I personally really dislike the avatar pictures, like the little AI, people. I don't like it when it's like a picture of a picture. Just take a nice picture. It doesn't have to be super fancy. Just put on something decent, and then have something as your banner photo. Again, you can go to Canva or a similar website and grab a template, personalize it, super, super easy. You can have a picture of your city, your town, just something that shows that you put a little bit of thought into it and you are active there. The other thing is, even if you aren't trying to be a LinkedIn influencer or guru, be active
Be
within
active.
your community. When we are on the recruiter side, we can see like profiles that have been active within the last 30, 60, 90 days. And somebody who hasn't been on LinkedIn in, 6 months or so, I might not reach out to first because I only get so many credits. So you want to be the person that is right at the top of the list. And those are some ways to do that. I think those
Sure.
are my points for you there.
We can lead in, I think, to self-assessment here as well. Obviously it's important to be out there looking to see, avenues and ways into organizations, et cetera. But I think it's also important to really kind of know what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what your interest in next, your next career path would be as it aligns to those things. What do you bring to the table, and where can you grow, right? Within the framework of this. So this is a good time, I think, especially if you're in between jobs, that you're going to be sitting down to consider new opportunities, to let that process flow with you a little bit as well. I know that there are a lot of tools and methods for self-assessment out there. Ciara, do you have anything that you would want to speak to on that topic from that standpoint?
Yeah, and my screen came up, right?
Sorry.
My screen is sharing, correct?
Sure. Here. So sorry, there we go. Yes, it is.
Okay,
Sorry, I had
perfect.
it minimized there. I was trying to make sure I was focusing on the camera versus my face. So
Sorry, no,
go
you're
ahead.
good. You're good. So if we think back to kind of doing a SWOT analysis, you can kind of tailor that, and it's going to circle back to a lot of the points that Ben talked about. Um, and SWOT is your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And you can model your job search and you can model your resume off of this. So strengths would be, what do I excel at? Am I great at leadership? Am I a communicator? Am I creative? Your achievements. Was I successfully completing projects? Did I win awards? Have I gotten some really positive feedback? Or have I done something really unique and really cool? And you want to lean into those. Whereas we want to lean away from things that, are maybe your weaknesses. Something like if you're applying for a job, and I always use the example of they need somebody who's proficient in Google Docs, but I've used Excel. They're basically the same thing, right? But that is a weakness I have. So how would I go about that? Would I take an Excel 101 course to show that, I have those interchanging skills? Looking at opportunities, we want to focus on like trends and industry connections. So what industries are doing really well right now? I know the market is really volatile, but who appears to be growing? What is new and cool? And do I know anybody in those industries? So we always joke that you cannot have a business webinar without mentioning AI and chat GPT. But
Sure.
things like that, that is hot, that is trendy, and being able to speak to that, even if it's not, you're not machine learning engineer, but being able to have an intelligent conversation. And then looking at the opposite of, well, what are my competitors good at? Where are their strengths and how do I differ? And then again, are there new technologies that are making some of my skills obsolete? So for example, I manage Agile's website, and we are based on WordPress, which is kind of an older tool. So even though I have got some really great experience, it's not new and trendy. Going back to software engineer, I think it's like Cobalt and Ruby on Rails. There's some really niche older skills, right, Ben? I haven't
Yeah.
worked those in a while. And you have those, but that's not the new hot, I feel like all the software languages now are like pickle and gherkin. I need Max to tell me all the new ones. But being able to stay up to date on those trends.
Sure. I'll speak to something real quickly. You mentioned the COBOLs and some of the more legacy stuff. I will say this: if you are incredibly good at like Ruby on Rails or COBOL, there are companies out there that are looking for you. So certainly don't feel like you've got to just absolutely shy away from those things. But adding some new arrows into your quiver probably wouldn't be a bad idea either. I still place people that operate off of mainframe technologies that were built back in the 70s. So it's just kind of funny to see that those companies are still around. I'll speak to a couple of other things just to kind of speak to what Ciara mentioned a moment ago as far as the Excel course. I'm a firm believer in that. certainly being able to stay on top of getting some foundational certifications in that you may not have. There's a lot of things out there that are free as far as courses are concerned as well. The Coursera courses are a good example of that. LinkedIn Learning is another good example of it. But if you've got some, regardless of your industry, right? If you've got access to some funds to where you could add some time into study for a CompTIA certification, say for an IT professional or so on and so forth, that you might not have, might not be a bad thing at a bad time to get your hand on that.